What is Phygital? How do you map a Phygital customer journey? To understand more about the future of customer experiences, stay tuned to this episode of the Zista Podcast. Welcome to the Zista Podcast, where we invite industry leaders and academicians to answer questions that students have within a specific subject area. Today, we're going deeper into the field of digital customer journeys. And joining us is Yves-Alain Schwaar. He has over 20 years of experience in the field of CRM, marketing automation, and business analytics. He's the CEO of Brand Infinity, and he's worked with great brands like Swiss Air, Some Education, the Digital Luxury Group, just to name a few. Let's go straight into the session. Welcome to the podcast, Yves-Alain. We're delighted to have you here today.
Hello, and happy to join this podcast today also. Nice to see you again.
Same. So, Yves-Alain, we've got a lot of questions to ask you. And I thought I'd ask you something very basic to start with. What is Phygital?
Well, actually, it's a new name for something which exists for a long time, which is basically blending phygital and digital experiences into a journey. Other terms are also used for the same, which is called omni-channel customer experience.
Right.
It's basically really the idea of understanding a journey of a client or a prospect or a very good client, for example, and try to create seamless experiences between the digital touch points and the physical touch points, basically. And that comes with a lot of technologies and thoughts and strategies, which need to be put in place to differentiate one company against another by delivering what we call exceptional customer experiences, and that goes via physical as well as digital touch points.
It's really interesting, and it's a good kind of combination of physical and digital kind of coming together in one word, also symbolifying that it's about creating a holistic experience or holistic way to approach customer experience. So products and services are getting more and more uniform. Product features are getting similar. So the way you deliver your service experience will become the real differentiator. So what I wanted to ask you is that if a company is mapping a digital customer journey, or they want to even understand that concept a little more in detail, what would you list as some of the key elements?
Well, one of the first things you need to do before you even start doing that is you have to have the capabilities to deliver that, and that comes with a proper architecture of your systems, because at the end it's all about data and systems, where you need to be able to basically build up the technology stack you need, and then understand the ways you would be able to measure with interacting with whom at which moments in the journey before you even start thinking about the journey. You basically need to have the technology in place. Otherwise, it's just a nice concept, but it's not going to fly. Okay, and a lot of struggles of companies are about having legacy systems, the ERP of this world, stitched together with a CRM and marketing automation. All this technology basically need to speak together to be able to build these digital customer experiences. If you don't have that, you better don't even start, because you're just going to touch little things around the journey, but you won't be able to create this seamless experience, which basically covers all the journey. And for that, you need systems which talk with each other, basically. Otherwise, you lost. But once you've done that and you kind of integrated your systems and they speak together, and you have the ability to basically measure interactions on the different interactions you have with people, again, physical or digital, then you need to really, what I do a lot with clients is basically you need to talk to the clients to understand what's the journey. For that, you could use design thinking methodologies where you do workshops, design thinking workshops, where you let people go through the journeys they went through, what are the wow moments, what are the pain moments. And once you've mapped that, basically you try to create a nice map. As we know, it's not linear, it's not a start end, but quite often people do come back. It's not, we used to look at this funnel, the visual funnel of we start there and we finish there. But actually people jump back and forth, and I need to understand at which moment they were blocked, why they came back to basically maybe searching for the solution, and when they were almost ready to purchase, what did block them, what were the pains on the way, what were their thoughts. And basically once you've mapped that journey, the pain points, the emotional moments, the difficult moments, you also have the stages in the journey where you can start to think, okay, this one is a priority for me because I lose a lot of people on that stage because something is painful, it doesn't work, it's too complex, process is too complex, and therefore I want to change that. So, and once you've done that, you can basically start building your Phygital customer journeys and thinking of what data points you want to measure at which moments, and how you want to basically lower the barriers at every stage which we're blocking. But also when you have in a journey, when you have moments which are very emotional. I'll take an example. We work for Triumph Motorcycles. One moment, which is one moment is the moment you sit on a bike to test it, okay? Because it's a special moment, it's fun, you kind of projecting yourself into buying a bike. And the last moment is when you receive the delivery day of your bike, okay? You go there, the plates are on the bike, you put your helmet on and you drive away, okay? And these are two very emotional moments which you can leverage to create basically content and that people shared experiences, for example, which is then content available to people which didn't do that stage yet, okay? So these emotional moments are important, but also the pain points is, okay, maybe when you discuss, you don't want to pay cash your bike, you need to have a leasing. The discussion around the leasing validation and so on is a bit tedious, complicated. You need to provide papers, it needs to be physical, so it's a bit complicated. And this, you want to basically lower the barrier of that stage, make it as simple as possible for the client, so you don't lose too many people on that journey. Okay, so and then you will have, ideally, you transport part of the process digitally, so you don't need to make it physically, so it makes it easier for people. So basically, it's really about thinking how you want to do that. But also, there's always a part of the search journey where you go on the website, you look for products, you search your services, you compare. Then you go maybe physically, you test, you go back online. It's basically also how do you want to know that the person which you've touched online has come to your point of sale, for example. So you need also there to kind of have a strategy, how you're going to capture Mr. Z, which came to your point of sale or to a retail store if you don't have your own physical stores, and what are the means you're going to use to identify that person physically when you have identified him already digitally, and how do you basically give an incentive or find a way that the person entering the store will identify himself or herself. Okay, so it's really about thinking, I have a journey, I have different points of contact, so touch points around the journey, and how do I leverage data as well as identity? How can I identify a person so I can basically maximize my leverage of my level of knowledge about the journey of the person? And then that feeds again data, machine learning, intelligence, and then you can optimize your journeys and do basically this loop of machine learning, AI, and all this stuff, which basically helps to refine and optimize your Phygital customer journey.
That's amazing. I think you highlighted a lot of points. And when companies think of customer experiences from a phygital perspective, they can, debate and analyze what experiences and interactions are best done physically versus digitally. And, you rightfully said it's about, also being mindful of privacy. So, which data points will be the common identifier across both these different universes to kind of, identify that, okay, this is that same customer, in a digital interaction, and now that same customer has come for a physical interaction. So that's really interesting. You know, and it's imperative, I feel, for brands to think in those terms and really labor on to deliver a very good customer experience. Uh, I wanted to ask you, even, are you seeing a lot of brands adopting this kind of mindset, in terms of a physical customer experience? What really is accelerating the adoption of something like this?
Well, one huge acceleration was basically coronavirus. When basically everyone had to stay home, all the retail stores were closed. I
Yes.
mean, in the education as well as retail, everyone which had a retail had to find a very quick way to deliver the product and services online and not physically. And that was basically a huge accelerator into the world of digital. Basically,
Right.
people which were still reluctant to move to the digital online sales, suddenly they didn't have a choice. So they had to adopt this new way of purchasing, experience a product, because there were no more way to go physically and buy a product or a service. And that was a huge accelerator. And I think before that, I mean, when you think about smartphones, iPhone, which basically did revolutionize the whole world of internet, um, it was the moment we had smartphones and the capability to interact on apps, social platforms, uh, use Google Maps to move around. That moment basically accelerated that capability of, well, the way people were thinking and purchasing products changed a lot, because we started to use phones to compare prices when you are in a retail store. There's this kind of transparency of the pricing, which was not there before. The day people had smartphones, suddenly the pricing kind of advantage, where people would buy a product more expensive because they didn't know it was cheaper somewhere else, that disappeared. So basically, the market became very transparent. So everything is available to everyone. Everyone knows the price of every product. And basically, that makes it more difficult to differentiate yourself as a company, because you cannot use the price anymore. Your margin is questionable because you need to deliver something for the same product. If you're a retail store, a Sony TV here, a Sony TV there, the pricing is transparent. You can buy it online to this price. You can go to physical store to buy this at the same price. And then what is the differentiator for you as a customer to buy the same TV in a different place? Basically, it's going to be the experience you have. If someone helps you to choose the right television, so basically the consulting part of the work. Maybe because you want to touch and see something, so you want to go physical to see it, but basically you could buy it online and have it delivered very shortly in your home without any problem. So it's really, how do you want to leverage the different channels, physical, digital, what experience you're going to deliver to differentiate yourselves against others? Because again, the market is transparent, a product is exchangeable, and why would you buy it in a place against another place? That's also why maybe a lot of brands are more and more building their own. They want to master the distribution channels, so they build their own retail outlets, because they don't want to be. They want to master the customer experience from start to the end. Okay, I mean, luxury brands have started with that a long time ago. The Louis Vuittons and Hermes and all the others. They're not distributed anywhere else because they want to have the end customer relationship, and they want to master the experience online and in store. They were more reluctant actually to leave the physical sales to go online. Now they slowly all adopted that, but it was difficult for them to move away from the physical to the digital, because they thought experience was very important. Now, when you have a brand as Hermes or Louis Vuitton, when you buy online, you know that you're going to buy the same product because it has a reputation and a brand which you respect and you consider as being premium. Therefore, that's not a problem. But there's ways where people were very physical, went online, or physical, which were mainly online and became physical because they wanted to extend this experience and give something else just and just buying a product online. And sometimes it's important. The consulting part, the seeing, touching is important, and therefore a lot of companies are also building their own retail stores, mostly in the premium segment because they can afford it. Yeah, that's basically how the way it works. But really, the main changes were first the smartphone, because it became ubiquitous, as we say. So basically, wherever you are, you have always the same information. You don't need to sit behind your computer. You have the same information on your smartphone. You use maps to orientate yourself. You can compare prices. You can buy online, even on the phone. And therefore, the thought of the people around that became much more, okay, there's not the physical and digital. Basically, it's all blended because I have my phone all the time with me. It's always on. And basically, that thought of process made the behavior change. The second one, there is the reluctance to change, were basically forced by coronavirus and the fact that everything was closed and they didn't have a choice. So they were forced to basically go online and experience that. And now they adopted that. And basically, that's also why we see more and more, I think, difficulties in retail stores. I don't know if here in Switzerland, in the city centers, there's not much more retail stores. Actually, it's much more food, entertainment, because a lot of retailers have gone bankrupt or closed because everyone is buying online, and because they were not able to deliver a differentiated experience physically, which made people still come to them. But I don't know how it's in India, but a lot of city centers now are empty of stores, apart from the big brands, which are still there because they have the volume and the capability to manage that. But it's become more and more difficult to maintain a physical presence because the volume of sales has gone down, and therefore the cost of staff, rent, everything has become too high, and they need to close and stay only online. So it's really I think it's an ongoing transformation. I believe it will come back because people need social interactions, need encountering, need to touch, feel, see. So I think it will come back, but that acceleration with coronavirus did a lot of pain for a lot of people. Companies which were a lot into retail and less online, and some of them went bankrupt and disappeared. Some could survive, but it's a struggle, I'm sure, for a lot of them.
At least what we see in India is that in our city centers, we see a whole mix of retail outlets, not just food and entertainment. Definitely retail is there in a lot of the malls. A lot of the spaces are, taken up by retail brands. Because India is such a big country, we have so many people. There's a good volume of people who still prefer, doing things in the physical world. And it's really interesting to see how, I really agree with what you said. So people have become smarter. I see customers who may go to a shoe store, try on a pair of shoes to see which size fits them, and then go back online and go to that website which is offering a fantastic deal. So now they know, okay, this shoe size for all those shoes or Nike shoes fits me well, so let me buy it online, right? And there are also instances where customers search for a product online, like an entertainment or a home entertainment system. They go through a whole bunch of peer review sites, comparison websites, and now then they zero in on the product. And that's when they go into the physical store and make a purchase. They want to clarify their last few queries with the salesperson, and because it's a big ticket investment, they may do that. So it's really interesting in some sense. Physical and digital interactions with a brand have always been there, but I think you're right when you say that the smarter brands want to control that entire spectrum of experiences and think in a holistic blended fashion. And that's where digital customer journeys make sense. When you were speaking earlier, you talked about pain points, but when you're mapping a phygital journey, can you also identify, new business opportunities? Do you think that's possible?
In general, the digital transformation thought, is it's not only a digitization of the interaction,
Right.
And most of the time it's rethinking the way you deliver your service or products, or rethinking completely your service or products. Okay. I'll just think of an example which would make sense too. I did recently a course with IMD in Lausanne around the digital transformation. And, I take an example of, it's a farming world. Okay. It's a farming world. It's Syngenta, which sells crops. Okay, they sell basically crops and fertilizer to farmers, and that's their business. Okay, and basically they became more and more under pressure from Chinese fertilizer and crop producers, which would sell the product cheaper. Okay, so they had to rethink the way they will deliver their product. Okay, it's not just delivering a crop and a fertilizer, but it's basically building a set of sensors, so data gathering solutions, which would basically blend with external data sources like meteo, rainfalls, temperature, humidity, basically mixed with a sensor which would sense the quality of the ground, how much humidity there is in the ground, and basically, depending on that, on the quality of the ground, the system would then recommend different crops, different fertilizer, and basically that data gathered on all farmers which would have that service and that product, they would have an app, and they would be to, okay, now it's maybe time you need to irrigate a bit your fields. Maybe you add a bit of this fertilizer, pay attention, this is going to come. And basically, they deliver more results for the same surface.
Sure.
So basically, they build this data layer where they capture a lot of data points, okay, which basically maybe was a pain point for the farmer because he didn't know exactly what to do, how to use that, blah, blah, blah. And he's lost between 15,000 fertilizers, different crops, and he doesn't know what to do. It's complicated, okay? So it's a huge pain point. And basically, they say, look, we're going to deliver you more results per square meter on your farm because you put the sensors, we give you at your disposal an iPad where you're going to see what needs to be done. Everything is mapped geographically. And what is interesting for Syngenta, they collect huge data sets, okay, where they also test and optimize their product as it goes. Because they say, oh, use that fertilizer, use that crop, and the mix with the humidity and a type of meteo makes it happen. Okay, and then suddenly they have a huge growth of results. The farmer is happy, and for them, they use machine learning to optimize all the time their products because they have a real-time market study where they can basically all the time use data and have this loop of enhancement around what they do. Another case was, for example, Nike, when they started using Nike plus apps. Basically, a shoe is not a shoe only, but it has sensors, and basically you become an athlete because you get an app and it tells you when to train. You have a community to run with, and basically you bind your shoe to an experience around an app, which makes you feel like you have more socializing because you meet other people on the app. You track your performance, and you think you do that better because it's Nike helping you to do that. Okay, so you basically, from a pure shoe product, you change the way it's perceived by the customers because you deliver an app, a training program, and all the stuff, and you become basically a coach. Okay, whilst actually what you said is shoes. Okay, but basically it's how you going to enhance that experience by transforming the experience you deliver to your clients, and that's kind of digital transformation, which is more than just enhancing or digitizing your customer experience. So yeah, it's really, I mean, it's a small difference, which represents those huge investments and kind of a permanent testing and optimizing thought into the company. And that's a struggle of a lot of the companies. They may be good at digitizing their processes, putting the infrastructure in place to do that, but then how do you bring the thought of transforming your business completely? Because you take risk, it's investments, you take risks, you're not sure it's going to work, and are you ready to do that bet to make that transformation? And that's a more difficult element, and it's more than digital customer journeys. It's really how do you want to transform your product and services, and how much you need to invest that and test and optimize all the time. And you need to have the teams and the competency in-house to do that. And also the willingness of the top executives team to go that way, because there's risk bound to that.
Sure.
And I've been working in the past for the print magazine industry, and we were telling guys, your print news, they're going to disappear over time. And that was a while ago. That was like 10, 11 years ago. And the guys were, they were kind of sticking on their papers and saying, no, that's our brand, that's paper. And we invested in a print building 20 millions, and this is going to be amortized over the next 20 years. So we can't go away from that. And basically, a lot of them have disappeared because they didn't adapt to the new way of consuming information, which is mostly on the mobile phone. So it's really, how do you balance that, capitalizing on the legacy, on the past, but thinking about the future and where you want to go, and managing both with the money you have is a struggle for a lot of companies. And that's why a lot of companies fail, because they don't go all the way. They just go a little way and hope it's going to work. So Phygital customer journey is part of that transformation. And a lot of people are not there yet, because they might have a good way to interact with people online, they send emails, depending on their website visits and so on, but they're blind on the touch points because they're not able to recognize Mr. Z, which was on the website and now comes to the physical touch points. They don't use data, or they don't have technology in place to do that. And that's a difficulty. And it's becoming more and more difficult because of data privacy and the laws which are coming in craft now. It's easy, you can put a beacon on the roof of your retail store, capture the unique ID of the phone entering the store, and you could have done the same online when the people open the email, but you need to have the willingness and the authorization of the person to do so. And for that, you need to bring value to the people so they accept to share their privacy data.
Sure.
And that's another important element you need to think of when you do that Phygital customer experience building. You need to basically give enough value to the people so they're ready to share their private information.
All right.
Sorry,
I'm just
jumping
thinking
a bit left and right.
No, absolutely. I was just thinking, from a marketing manager's perspective, back in the olden days, marketing managers would have to think of, designing some experiences or interactions completely in a physical world, or designing some experiences completely in a digital way. But I would say digital is not just about customer journeys; it's also about a mindset. And I see a lot of brands adopting it, wholeheartedly. So, say for example, you walk into a physical store, and there is some step involved where you scan a QR code and you get some benefit. So, it's an example of a physical experience where there's a digital element of you getting your smartphone out, scanning a QR code, and maybe that gives you an additional discount on something that you're purchasing. But you're also, volunteering, sharing some data in the process, something about your likes and preferences. So that goes back into the you know the companies collecting that data, and then they can use that data at a later stage. So it's interesting, how companies are now thinking in a phygital way, which is a blending of digital and physical. And it's really interesting to see use cases and innovations surface in this space. Yves-Alain, I wanted to ask you, um, if a company wants to create a seamless and consistent shopping experience, essentially that's what Phygital is striving to achieve. What roles do augmented reality and virtual reality play in that context?
I think we're still in the early stage of that. We recall last year before, there've been a few bubbles around virtual reality, Meta. They changed their name from Facebook to Meta. They invested billions into it, and kind of all went to the bin, because as long as there's no adoption, a massive adoption of the technology from people, because it brings you enough value that it changes your experience, and then you're ready to move to that stage. Unless that happens, it's nice and beautiful, but all this Meta platforms, the NFTs and all this stuff which popped up. There's always this curve, there's the early adopters. Okay, there's a bubble, basically, but the world is not ready for that. Then a lot of people lose a lot of money there. There's a kind of a crash after. And that repeats, there was the same with e-commerce in the year 2000, where, the stock market went up crazy and then everything crashed because
Yes.
basically it was too early. And then there is this path after when it starts to pick up again. And that's where really the model takes off. And I think, virtual reality, I'm not convinced yet, because I think there's not the device and the experience leads to that, which is interesting enough to make it happen and have a massive adoption. I have a good friend which has a company which has basically this virtual reality, with the lenses, and does stuff like onboarding of staff, so they can visit the office before they start. They have a virtual encounter with the CEO, which explains them a lot of things, where they move around virtually with the headset and blah blah. So that starts to work, but I think the experience is not differentiating enough and convincing enough that people adopt it massively, because it's expensive, it's cumbersome. Augmented reality, when you have glasses where it will tell you, move right, left, oh, here you have a promotion in that store. The day that happens and it becomes seamless for the person, and it's not basically hindering other experiences, I think that's going to take off, but we're not there yet. Augmented reality is something which is, I think, can make more sense, where you have you can have a 3D model from something, or you can experience a product. Lego does that, for example. Go to a Lego store, you have you have the box, and basically you have a kind of a QR code, you scan it, and then basically with the app you kind of see the built Lego product, and you can look at it in 3D on top of the box. That makes sense. But again, I think it's still early, and there's not a massive adoption for it, because the experience is not good enough yet to have it completely adopted by everyone. But technology is there, the phone is there, but maybe we need another device, because we're still used to look at videos, and that kind of this blending of physical, digital experiences, glasses or whatever it will be. We'll see how it works. I'm waiting to see what Apple brings with a new VR headset, which is going to come on the market, I think, in the next few weeks.
Yes,
and what
a lot
I've
of
seen
buzz
on
around
video,
that.
I've seen that on video, and it seems that they're getting near to that kind of differential experience enough that it's going to have a more massive adoption. There's then a hurdle of the price, because it's crazy expensive.
Sure.
Okay. But with the time, I think they're getting there, and they're known to revolutionize the market, and they did that with the iPhone, with the smartphone. They might get there with this new device, but we'll have to see. But I've started to test this augmented reality stuff exactly with the print magazine back at that time in 2011, 2013. So that was early stage. It's interesting, but it didn't get a massive adoption yet. So that's my summary, because the experience is not good enough yet to make people switch heavily to it.
I think for any technology to have a really massive adoption, two things need to happen. One is that the experience in itself is amazing. It should blow your mind. It should be like, I want that. That's the feeling you want customers to have. And second thing is the price point. The price point needs to be low enough. The entry barrier should be low, therefore allowing more people to adopt it, more people to go and purchase it. Otherwise, something may be fantastic, but if it's too elitist, it's going to remain in the hands of the few, and then it's not resulting in wide adoption. I mean, the real smartphone revolution started when, cheaper models of smartphones, still having the same set of apps, started coming in the marketplace, thereby opening the floodgates for the kind of people, the kind of customers that could actually purchase that smartphone. And I think India is a testament to that. You have even a guy who goes around early morning delivering milk to people's houses, and he has a smartphone. I mean, that's where it's reached to. So
Yeah.
it's
I think
amazing.
you're right, because I think with the massive adoption of a new technology comes then what I call network effect, because more people are using it, then it makes more sense for people to develop new stuff for it.
Yes.
Because there's enough money to make out of it, but also there's all this social interaction. I mean, that's where Facebook and all these social media platforms really took off. It was because it was available on a smartphone and it was adopted by more and more people. And the day you have more and more people adopting it, then it brings also more value to the people which are using it.
Sure.
And then that network effect happens, and then it takes off and goes ballistic, so to say. And as you say, yes, price experience and pricing is definitely something which helps to make it happen. Yeah.
I want to ask you one last question in terms of, implementing a Phygital strategy, or perhaps getting started with your Phygital customer journey. Are there any challenges or maybe things that people should be mindful of in particular when they're implementing this? What could go wrong? If you could, from your experience, identify and tell us, pay extra attention to this, I think it would make a big difference to people who are trying to implement this strategy.
Well, as I said, the first thing you need to have is the technology to be able to deliver it.
Right.
That goes over the capability to have the full view of your customer interactions. So we talk about CRM, where you're gonna basically capture the interactions you have with the person, and you need to augment it with what we call a customer data platform, where you basically, because you want to be able to, one important element in that journey is the ability to personalize the experience depending on the needs of the person. Okay. And that goes with segmentation of your audiences. And that goes with mostly still until now manually defined elements, but in the future, machine learning, automated things, which basically would cluster your audiences into segments. And then you need to personalize the experience. So you need to be able to deliver that personalization. And that goes with, for example, marketing automation solutions, where you don't want to do that manually. Basically, you need to have a scenarios in place and logics, which makes it happen by itself. Okay. Because if you need to set up your newsletter to all your segments to send it out, you lost already. Okay. So it's really about building your marketing technology stack. So CRM, marketing automation, customer data platform, certainly a data warehouse where you're able to gather all that information in one place and then connect your intelligence to your ERP, to your sales, what has been sold, to your POS systems. So you have to have an open architecture which allows you to plug new tools as you go. Okay.
Sure.
So it's basically really this capacity to use APIs to push and pull data around systems.
Right.
Okay. So you need technology, you need people which are able to master that. So you need data scientists, you need very good people in digital, people which understand data, are able to interpret it. You need enough systems to build that intelligence, and basically the scalability of your architecture, so you can build as you go. So that's basically what you need. It's people, technology, and then that culture in the company to test and optimize all the time.
Okay.
And be okay to fail.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Because a lot of people or companies don't have the fail culture. And if you don't have that culture, you're never going to start anything, take any risk, and then you're going to not improve what you do because you're going to just stick at what you do already, because that's not a risk. But then you might be lost because the competitor does it better than you. So it's really this technology capabilities being technology, people-wise, the intelligence, and the willing to explore and try new stuff, and therefore taking the risk of failing. And that's the most difficult element, I think, because you're driven by revenue, by margin, by the stock value, or your shareholder wants return. And a risk means potentially you're not going to reach your target, and therefore, okay. So sometimes it goes with building a separate company which does that. Sometimes it's giving a team next to reporting directly to the CEO that freedom to do that. Okay. But you need to have the top management support. Otherwise, you better not start.
Interesting. I think you really narrowed it down to some of the most important points. So thank you so much for doing that. And I also want to say thank you for making time in your day for coming on our podcast and talking about Phygital customer journeys and the entire Phygital mindset, the Phygital approach to, looking at customer experiences and looking at customers in a much more holistic way. So thank you for that, Yves-Alain.
Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure.
In today's session, we learned so much about Phygital customer journeys. Brands are increasingly adopting it, and it actually makes a lot of sense. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Follow us on YouTube to get notifications as and when new content goes live. Follow us on Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Our handle is the Zista Podcast. Till we meet again, we'd say, stay curious.